It's a race to the bottom.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this crossover edition, Locked On Syracuse, Locked On Wolfpack. I'm Jackson Holzer, the host of Locked On Syracuse. And also we got Grayson, Boone, and Kenton, Gibbs, the co-hosts of Locked On Wolfpack. And let's just start right here, all right? Syracuse and NC State are going to play a basketball game Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern inside the JMA Wireless Dome. And we're not going to lie to you all. And I can speak for all three of us right now, okay? We are not very happy about the stakes of this game. The winner of this game may very well go into the ACC tournament, but the loser of this game, they might just clinch themselves out of the conference tournament altogether. Good evening, everyone. How are we all doing?
Well, they're going to play a resemblance, something resembling a basketball game, we hope. Jackson, thanks for having us. Certainly wish we were meeting on better terms, but we're looking at a mid-bowl on a Wednesday evening. The loser of this game, to your point, might just miss out on the ACC tournament. Very embarrassing.
I think that we're disrespecting the word mid here. This is a Meg Thee Stallion twerk video. You just got one cheek next to the other, and it's a lot less pleasurable than that experience. But this is going to be awful, man. This is, it's two very bad teams that are, again, we're on the bubble for a conference tournament. I just want to make sure everybody is there. So this is a game with intrigue. This is a game with aura, as the kids say. But it's literally just like, who's going to go to your conference tournament? And, it's not the outcome that any of us would have wanted for our season. But here we are. So I'm so happy to be here with you, Jackson Holzer. So excited.
We're all going to just smile through the pain throughout this show. We're going to smile through it. All right. Just like Louisville fans had to do smiling through the Kenny Payne era, right? We're going to smile through the pain. Neither of us, of course, have Kenny Payne, but what's the difference at this point? We're both so terrible. For those that don't know, NC State is at 4-12 in the ACC. Syracuse is at 5-11. They are two of the 5 worst teams in the ACC, and only the 3 worst miss the conference tournament outright. I want to start out talking about NC State, and then feel free to ask me questions about Syracuse either now or throughout the show, really, all right? I mean, relative to expectations, how has this season really panned out? Were you guys thinking that you were going to be really good, or did you think that this was going to be a massive step back, especially from last season's Final Four?
We certainly didn't expect to resemble how last year ended. Of course, I mean, we were all taken by surprise winning the ACC tournament and making it to the Final Four. Our expectations, at least in my mind, were just to get back to the NCAA tournament, have a respectable season, be competitive, both in the ACC play. And yeah, I mean, you hope to be competitive nationally once you get into March Madness, but we didn't have massive expectations, but we've certainly missed whatever mark it was by a country mile. Just a complete disaster of a season.
Yeah, this has been, I mean, my expectations for this year were similar to last year, maybe take a slight step back from middling. Maybe be a team that's on like the bottom rung of middling team, because objectively speaking, that's where NC State was until March happened.
Right.
Like that was not a team, that wasn't a gangbusters team where everybody said, oh boy, NC State men's basketball, slot them in your Final Four as soon as they saw the bracket. Like on the women's side of things, I knew as soon as the brackets came out for the ACC tournament, oh man, they've got a good shot at winning this thing. And for the NCAA, I tweeted out, oh, NC State just made the Final Four. On the women's side, that's how good they were. Conversely, the men were never that at any point in time. It was just like, good things are happening. We're enjoying the ride. Yeah. Boss man D'Lo was enjoying the ride. Raleigh citizens were enjoying the ride. Everybody was enjoying the ride. But we knew that was not a team that you look at and say, man, you're losing DJ Burns, you're losing DJ Horn, you're losing Mo Diarra, but we're expecting you to take a step forward. Wolfpack fans are only a little delusional. We're not that delusional. So there were no misgivings about this team being built for greatness, but I mean, damn, this is pathetic even compared to expecting the team to take a step back.
It sounds like what I would say to describe Syracuse's expectations, to be quite honest with you. We didn't expect to be elite, but we didn't think we'd be doing this podcast together. That's for sure. Absolutely not. So why has this season gone south?
I'd say the number one reason is missing on your portal acquisitions, and we'll get into some of those names in just a second. But when you rely so heavily on these guys to come in and not only, I guess, change the culture, but adapt the culture that you built on the very end of last year, it has not clicked in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And I think there was some reliance, probably a too heavy bit of reliance on some players of last year's team that weren't really quite ready to take on a larger role, so to speak. I think you're relying on role players to try and be superstars, and that is trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. So it's just been a multitude of issues the entire season. The perimeter shooting's been bad. Rebounding has been one of the biggest head-scratching issues for the entirety of the season, but it's just been all over the place. Some nights you get great play from some of your younger guys, like we saw. Somehow we beat Wake Forest on Saturday with Paul McNeil going for a new career high as just a freshman. And then there's other games where it's, your, so to speak, veterans are nowhere to be found. So it's just been a complete seesaw of a year, a little bit of here, a little bit of there, but it's a whole lot of bad. That's for sure.
It's an unwillingness to change. That's what it is more than anything else. We had Grayson pulled up a stat the other day that said that there was a lineup of 5 players that actually had a positive plus minus on the entire season. And yet we only played that group for 20% of ACC play, because it included a couple of young guys, if I do remember it correctly, to which I'm like, dude, play who is winning. Play who is making the plays. I can understand if the elder statesman had showed you things to where, like, you rock with a DJ Burns, because even if last March did not happen, objectively speaking, there were so many games where he carried you the year before that you're like, hey, if we're going to lose with Big Fella, that's Big Hoss. He's done his job. He's done the work to get here. Play with that a guy like that, sure, but everybody else, either you get it done, you get what we need done, or we'll put it in somebody who does. We have flatly not done. We have flatly decided, it's all right. It's okay. We don't really need you guys to step up at any high level. And like Grayson talked about, we have problems that don't pair well together. Like to be undersized and bad at shooting, how the hell do you even – what is that? What? It's something that we have seen all throughout this season that has just, it's been such a detriment to NC State at so many points in time. There were early in the season before things got really out of hand in terms of losing. There were so many games that was like, if you just hit 1 or 2 more threes. And mind you, Grayson and I weren't asking for 1 or 2 more threes that would have put him at like 50%, 60%. Those 1 or 2 more threes would have put him up at 25, 30. Some games, I remember one game we were, 1 of 15 or something like that from deep, and we lost that game by 2 points. So, we just have an interesting slate of problems in terms of, we didn't pick a struggle between being undersized or bad at shooting. They said, no, give me both. BOAF, both.
For context for what Kenton is saying, ladies and gentlemen that are watching, listening to this podcast, NC State is bottom 5 in the conference in three-point shooting. They shoot just 32.1% for the season. So, yeah, you're undersized and you cannot shoot the 3 ball. You're not going to win a lot of games, and that's why we are doing this podcast, why you are one of the 2 teams in it. I want to talk about one of the transfers in particular, because Grayson hit on the transfers. What on earth happened to Brandon Huntley-Hatfield? He was good. He was 13 points a game at Louisville, 8 rebounds. I get that Louisville wasn't a good team last season, but he was one of the more highly sought-after players in the portal last season. What did y'all do to him, or what did he do to you?
Well, we are still trying to figure out the answer to that question. I would have to say he's probably been the most disappointing, maybe just player in general, but definitely the most disappointing of the transfer acquisitions. There's been times, and I don't want to harp too hard on him, but there's been times where I think you could question his heart a little bit, his hustle, his attention to detail, his attention to defensive assignments. It's been a lot. And there's been times where he looks visibly like mentally checked out of these games. And I think, when fans know that sort of thing, they can tell it it's you open yourself up for a lot of criticism. And I think that's where he's found himself for the bulk of this year, but nowhere near the player that we thought we'd be getting. Because if we were getting a 13-9 guy, 13-8 guy that we saw his potential to be from Louisville, perhaps the season looks a whole lot different, because our front court has been one of our most esteemed weaknesses this season.
If I would have known that we were going to talk Brandon Huntley-Hatfield today, I would have put something stronger than water in this here cup. Okay.
Alcoholic beverage of your choice.
Exactly. He and the lion from what's the movie I'm thinking
Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz. They have a very similar problem. They need to go see the wizard and get some hard. I have never, in all my years, one thing that I always said when I played was, I'm going to control everything that I can control. And if it's out of my control, it's out of my control. If a guy is faster than me, he's just faster than me. I could work the best technique possible. He's just faster than me. If he's stronger than me, I'm fighting. I'm doing everything I can. I got leverage. I got good hands. What I am seeing from him is a complete and utter lack of effort. And do you know how insane it is for Grayson to say, oh, he's been our most disappointing transfer? We've got a transfer named Mike James that has not played a single second of basketball. And here's the interesting thing about that. I'm not sure I disagree with Grayson that he's been our worst transfer, despite the fact that we have a guy that hasn't played. You know why? Because at times it feels like, well, damn, having you on the court is such a net negative. Yeah. You sitting down wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Again, that death lineup for NC State that's in the positive plus minus, guess who it doesn't include?
I would assume it does not include Brandon Huntley-Hatfield, or else
it does not.
So with that in mind, I mean, when you talk about what have we done to him, brother, we were sold a lemon. We thought everything was all right. And this is, again, it's patently, I am on Keatts because he constructed this roster, and also because he is responsible for sending out those lineups. But man, I don't think that there's a single elder statesman that I would say, oh, he's outplayed expectations. I don't think there's a single one.
Oh, he's been massively disappointing. A final question for you all. Is there any key injuries ahead of this game that we need to be aware of as Syracuse fans?
Well, the only one is Mike James, but it's not really worth talking about because he's not played a single minute for the entirety of the season. And even that has been an interesting situation, because in the beginning of the year, Keatts had kind of told us all to expect him, sometime in December. He's working on coming back from a knee scope. We're going to see where it goes. And then 2 more weeks go by, and it's like, okay, tack on another 2 weeks to that. 2 more weeks go by. We still don't know. And we never really got a clear, concise answer until a couple weeks ago, or maybe like a week or so ago, where he was like, yeah, we're getting to the point where we have to make a final decision here. There's 2 weeks left. There's 3 weeks left. If he's not playing now, he's not playing at all. Yeah. So Mike James is really the only one to keep note of, but I mean, nothing to keep note of there.
I can tell you, as a man with a father and a brother named Kevin, when Kevin tells you 2 more weeks, just know it ain't happening.
All right. Well, thank you both. We'll continue this podcast and we'll switch gears. We'll talk about what has gone wrong with Syracuse basketball. So stick with us here on this Locked On crossover edition of Locked On Syracuse and Locked On Wolfpack. Don't go anywhere. March basketball is almost here, and there's no better way to get in on that action than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, easy, and keeps every game exciting. I love how I can make my picks in less than 60 seconds and stay engaged all game long. And when I win my money, of course, my money hits my account in as little as 15 minutes. No waiting around. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, we are going to switch gears. Locked On Syracuse, Locked On Wolfpack. In the first segment, we learned about what's gone wrong with the Wolfpack this season. So, guys, the floor is yours. Feel free to ask me anything about what is going up What is going on with Syracuse basketball right now?
We've talked about NC State. They're 4-12 in the ACC, but we have the same overall record as Syracuse. That is 11-16. So I'll spin this right back to you, Jackson. What have been the most interesting flaws of Syracuse this season?
Well, you guys mentioned a poor combination of size being a problem and shooting be a problem. Well, we do have one thing in common. Syracuse basketball is not a good shooting team this season. They are just 2 spots ahead of NC State in 3-point field goal percentage this season. So they can't really shoot the ball well. They rebound at a pretty high level. That's nice. But some of your guys who might be disappointing on offense this season, I think they might have some career days, because Syracuse basketball, if not for Miami, is one of the worst defenses out of every single power conference team out there. Seriously, among the worst. They are absolutely brutal on defense. One-on-one matchup, man-to-man, you can beat them. You can blow by them to the basket. 2-3 zone, once you figure it out after a minute or two, it ain't the same Syracuse 2-3 zone that you all know and love from the early to mid 2010s, with all that length, and you just couldn't beat it. You couldn't beat the 2-3 zone. Well, now it's really not that difficult. So they can't shoot, just like NC State, and they cannot defend a lick.
So do you think that lack of defense, that lack of ability to stay in front of guys, is kind of an offshoot of, hey, we tried to get somebody from the coaching tree of Jim Boeheim, but it's not quite him. We got Boeheim at home instead of like the real deal. Is that part of the struggles defensively?
You can say that, but when Adrian Autry was first hired by Syracuse basketball, one of the first things that he decreed that he was going to be different than Boeheim, he was going to play man-to-man defense. Well, it just has not worked. This team has not played defense in 2 years. They're not good this year defensively, and last year they had a guy by the name of Malik Brown on their team. I think people are pretty aware of Malik Brown, and for those that don't know, he's, only the best defender on maybe the best team in the country in the Duke Blue Devils. Well, he was on Syracuse last year, and he was really good defensively. They still didn't play defense. They were bottom 3 in the ACC last year in points allowed per game. So you could say it's because he's a poor version of Jim Boeheim, but he's actually really different than Boeheim. Boeheim was a zone guy. Autry likes to play man most of the time. He switches to zone sometimes because he wants to make an adjustment, but nothing really works.
I know that J.J. Starling has done a lot of the heavy lifting for Syracuse this year. He's had several nights where he's gone for 20+. When it hasn't been J.J. Starling, are there any other players that have been able to answer the bell, so to speak, and help him out on nights where he really needs that?
Well, it's funny enough that you say answer the bell, because one of our most disappointing players this season is Chris Bell. Last season, Chris Bell was second in the ACC in 3-point percentage. He was one of the premier shooters in the conference. Oh, yeah, you know
we
him.
Found out the hard way.
He had 8 threes in the first half against NC State. Remember that?
We all know that name.
Well, this season, he has just not been the same Chris Bell. He's shooting 36% from 3 this season, which is respectable. You'll take 36% from 3. But the issue with Chris Bell is that he really doesn't do anything else on the floor he doesn't do anything else. He's not a really good rebounder. He's not really a good defender. His value is in his shooting. And if he's a middle-of-the-road shooter, he is a net negative compared to what he was last season where, he ain't a good defender. He ain't a good rebounder. But guess what? If he's hitting 8 threes in a first half against NC State, he's a plus. You want him on the floor. So he's been disappointing. And as far as outside of that, you can get 10 to 15 points from Eddie Lampkin. He's actually, the fan base gives him a lot of heat. He's not a good defender at all. That's a theme with the team. Nobody can really defend. But he's actually been one of the more consistent players in the team this season. He'll give you 10 points and 9 rebounds. But outside of maybe those 3 guys, they don't have Donnie Freeman for the rest of the season. There's not a whole else out there that's really going to scare you about Syracuse's offense.
So in terms of who Syracuse is and kind of asking yourself like, oh my God, this team is so many things have gone wrong. We saw last year, as long as you get to the tournament, anything can happen. But with that in mind, do you look at this team like, hey, this is salvageable, not just for this year, but even going beyond this year? Are you like, hey, we got to strip this thing down to the studs and kind of, try something else because this ain't working?
So as far as this season, it's not salvageable. If they manage to beat NC State tomorrow, they win that game, and they're probably in the ACC tournament if they do. I mean, it would mathematically be almost impossible for NC State to catch up. It doesn't matter. Best case, they win one game in the conference tournament and they're done. This is not a situation where, they can just turn on the switch and then, they could be NC State from a year ago. NC State was a lot better than this Syracuse team is. A lot better. So I don't envision a Cinderella run this season. As far as the future, myself is included in this. A lot of people want to see Adrian Autry, the head coach of Syracuse basketball, gone after only 2 years. A lot of people are in that camp right now. However, I don't think anyone actually envisions that they will pull the plug. I think he has been given a year 3 no matter what, because they do have a borderline top 10 recruiting class coming in, headlined by Kyan Anthony, the son of Carmelo Anthony. They have Sadiq White, who is a fringe 5-star prospect as well, and a guy from Australia who's a 4-star and another 3-star. So they got a pretty good recruiting class coming in, so you don't want to lose that. And also, they are pretty much telling us that they're going to beef up the NIL a little bit more. There was a report that came out yesterday that Syracuse is operating this roster at about $2 million, which is middle of the pack in the ACC. And quite frankly, as someone who does not want Adrian Autry back for year 3, $2 million is not good enough. It's not. You're not going to win substantial. Do I think you can make a tournament team with a $2 million roster? I do, and that's why I think this team is massively underachieving. But you are not going to be Syracuse basketball, a team that year in and year out has got a shot at a national title, shot to make a Final Four, one of the upper seeds in March Madness. It ain't going to happen with over $2 million. So that's a long way of me saying this season is not salvageable, but hopefully the next coming years will be better for Syracuse basketball.
Sticking right on that same note, so I'll recycle this question because you already asked us. So relative to the performance this year and the recruiting you just talked about, where were the expectations coming into this season based on where they're at now?
The expectation was at minimum they would compete for an NCAA tournament spot. I think a lot of people, including myself, thought that this could be the year that they actually snapped their tournament drought. Prior to this season, they had gone 3 straight years without making it, which has really never happened in Syracuse basketball, not since well before Jim Boeheim was the head coach. I mean, we're talking a long, long time since they went 3 years. So it was, hey, compete for a tournament spot at minimum. That's the baseline. Have a chance. Maximum, get to the tournament. Just get there however way you can. In fact, I would even say this, and it's not going to happen, but if you do make the ACC tournament and you somehow manage to win 5 games in 5 days, all is going to be forgiven, right? All is forgiven on that. Now, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You're not going to go on that miracle run, but the expectation is just get to the tournament no matter how you do it. Unfortunately, it's come to this. We might not make the ACC tournament.
Well, I'll tell you, it might not be forgiven if you go 11-16 the year after that. Take it from us. But no, it's crazy. It's crazy to see Syracuse of all schools in a position like this because, I grew up college basketball fan. Syracuse has been the top-ranked team in the country at some points. Yeah. And to see them fall off so quickly, and I guess it's tough to replace Jim Boeheim because you can't replace Jim Boeheim, but Syracuse is a name that you expect to see in national prominence every single year. You saying that they haven't been to the NCAA tournament in 3 seasons, that's like mind-boggling.
This is now going to be 4.
Yeah, that's mind-boggling.
You ready for this? You ready for this stat? When was the last time you think Syracuse basketball was ranked in the AP top 25 at any point in the season?
What was it, 2019?
Grayson, you got a guess?
I'll go 2017.
December 2018.
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle. I was about to say.
Syracuse basketball.
Ooh.
Syracuse basketball has not been ranked in 7 years in the top 25.
Wow.
Hello? There's a reason why the fan base is really upset right now. This has gone on for far too long. This program was trending down, and this feels like rock bottom. This is like the season where everything just went wrong for this program.
We're right there with you. Unfortunately, we are in the very same shoes as you all up there in upstate New York. Incomprehensible that we're standing here talking about, is either team going to make the ACC tournament, not the NCAA tournament, the ACC tournament, and the winner or loser of this game may have their fate decided.
Yep, and y'all play on that last game of the season at 12 o'clock, I want to say, and Syracuse plays a night game against Virginia. We might already know our fate by then. That's how sad that this has become. Any last questions for me about Syracuse, or would you like to move on to prediction time?
I mean, at this point, I feel like talking about Syracuse hockey would be more poignant. Fun fact, they don't have a hockey team. So
they have a women's hockey team, but not a men's one. The men's one's club.
Well, who knows? The Ice Pack may venture up there and we could do more resembling of the sport that we say we're playing. But I've got nothing for you. Grayson, you got anything?
I'm all set. Let's get into these predictions.
All right. Coming up, predictions for Syracuse and NC State. All right. So you've heard, ladies and gentlemen, how bad each team is. Syracuse isn't good. Neither is NC State. And none of us three really want to be doing this podcast. We are doing it for the sake of you all. And think of it as a therapy session for everyone here. Having said that, this is actually an important game. It is. It's going to probably decide who makes and misses the ACC tournament. I'll start off with you guys. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? Who do you got?
I mean, who really knows at this point? It's interesting talking about the stakes involved here. Coach Keatts said about a week or so ago that their new goal, because all the other goals have been thrown out the window, was to make it into the ACC tournament, because it would be extremely embarrassing to win it one year and not be in it the next. But the play has not matched the goal setting, so to speak. The effort has not matched the words. And so when you have to swallow that, and then you have to go on the road, and ACC games are always hard to get, but especially on the road. NC State has not had a whole lot of success going up to, I call it the Carrier Dome. Sorry, I'm always going to call it the Carrier Dome, but we don't play well when we go up there. It's hard to have confidence that NC State can go on the road and not just pick up a win, but it would be back-to-back wins because, again, somehow we beat Wake Forest. I don't know. I find it hard to believe that NC State will get it done, but it sounds like it's going to be a rock fight nonetheless.
Let me tell you something, okay? I recovered the fumble that Gabe during his first ever conference win in the Carrier Dome. His mama named him Carrier Dome, so I'm going to call him Carrier Dome, okay? But now, what's more important than that? You know, Jackson, we always argue about something, and I've got to push back on something you said today. None of us know what's going to happen. Actually, I do. I have a statistical certainty for you. Do you know what happens when NC State goes on the road in ACC games this year? Do you know what has happened every single time?
They lose.
They've lost. They've lost.
Well, that means you're due.
Dude, this is overdue. This is like if somebody was carrying around a baby, like, oh, she's only 18 months. She'll drop any moment. Due is not the word, bro.
You're holding the baby for 18 months. We got a whole other problem here.
Exactly. So with that in mind, there is no due date here. We are not due. Syracuse is going to win this game. It's going to be close, but Syracuse is going to win this game because Keatts is going to be averse to playing the young guys, despite the fact that our young guys are actually coming on now. Despite the fact that Paul McNeil, who came into the season, I believe he started the season shooting like 3 of 20 or something like that from deep. He's now up over, I believe he's at 36% on the season because he shot damn near 50 these last few games. I don't think he'll play that much. Despite the fact that you all can't defend anybody, I think Kevin Keatts is going to say, you know what? They can't defend. We need a defensive lineup. That's what we'll do. So, you know, I think that Syracuse wins a close one here. And, you know, hey, congrats to you boys for going dancing. And is it DC this year? Is it DC or is it New York?
No, I think it's
Charlotte.
It's in Charlotte.
Oh, boy. Dancing in Charlotte.
That's how checked out we are.
Tournament, baby. Let's go. It used to be just a given every year that you would make it, but we expanded the conference. Now we're going to take 15 of the 18. I actually do agree with that. I think it should be less teams in the conference tournament. I digress. Y'all are going to pick against your team. And I cannot sit here on this panel and say that Syracuse is going to win this game. And it's solely because none of you all are picking NC State to win. We cannot have a clean sweep on this podcast. Are you kidding me? We cannot have it. I see it all the time. It's like you put on NFL game day morning. It's like, I think that team's going to win. And everyone across the panel thinks that team's going to win. And then lo and behold, they don't win. I can't do that. I can't. The thing is with Syracuse basketball, I talked about their defensive struggles. NC State is the type of team that would just have a great night. Just for once, have a great shooting day. This is the type of game where you could. I know it's weird.
For those of you who cannot see Grayson's face, he hit you sure about that?
I'm telling you, this could be the game. This could be the game for NC State where they go on the road and they actually win against a conference opponent. It could happen because Syracuse is terrible defensively. I think this is honestly going to be one of the more compelling games of the season. I think this could be a really fun one, just for giggles.
We have differing opinions of the word fun. I will guarantee you that much. I don't know.
It's going to be a race to the bottom. It's going to be an epic tank off, and we're going to like it. The other thing that I'll say about Syracuse is this. Prior to a certain game that I'm going to mention, the Orange, they would beat the bad teams. Like some of the time, it would be really close. Like the first 3 games of the year, you barely beat Lemoyne, you barely beat Colgate, you go to double overtime against Youngstown State. Yeah, I'm telling you, that actually happened. 2 overtimes against Youngstown State. Have you ever heard of Youngstown State? Probably not. They went 2 overtimes against them. Also Lemoyne. That was a regulation game, but still, you've probably never heard of Lemoyne. At least you've heard of Colgate, the toothpaste, of course. But
I'm a Midwesterner, brother. I've heard of Youngstown State before.
Okay, I never had heard of them until I hadn't heard of them. All right, and
fair enough.
All right, a lot of people probably haven't. That's okay. They're not a national brand out here. They were beating the bad teams, even if it was by the skin of their teeth. And then they go to Miami on February 11th. And they make the Miami Hurricanes look like one of the more talented teams in the country. Miami put up 91 on Syracuse in that game. So the seal has been
Miami's
lifted.
coach already quit before that? I feel like he quit. Right? He was done.
Oh, yeah, he was done. Oh, he was long gone. February 11th, at Miami, they lose 91-84. So the seal has been broken. They could lose to a really bad team. And I could see them at home inside the dome losing. And also, again, we cannot have a clean sweep on this podcast. Absolutely not. No team
working some reverse psychology. He working some reverse psychology.
These teams don't deserve it. Nobody deserves to be a 3-0. Come on. I was hoping that one of you would pick Syracuse or NC State to win, but okay, fine.
This is a panel full of people picking the other team. What a great time.
Well, I'm Jackson Holzer, the host of Locked On Syracuse. That's Grayson Boone and Kenton Gibbs, the hosts of Locked On Wolfpack. Trust me, we're going to be watching this game tomorrow. Syracuse at home against NC State at 7 p.m. Eastern. Winner, probably to the ACC Tournament. Loser, you're not probably going to the ACC Tournament. Both teams aren't very good, but it should still be, we have different definitions of fun. It should still be a pretty fun fight. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Syracuse. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Wolfpack. And we'll see you all again post-game. Oh boy, this is going to be fun.